Hi, it's Mike for Studio Wizards, and this is a short video about DJing, and I thought I would talk about basically the nuts and bolts about DJing in a club or a larger party festival maybe, and not really I'm not going to look at the mixing or the technology behind the DJing because that can be covered in a different episode, but this is more to do with just the general thing surrounding like playing in a club and how to go about that, and maybe it's going to help you if it's your first gig or something like that. It's not really going to help for people who are maybe more experienced and they've been through the scene and so on. So this is kind of more like for the guy who or girl who's their first time maybe going to a club, a larger club, maybe to play in front of a larger audience, and just a few tips and tricks about that. So the first thing I can say about DJing, and it's probably pretty universal, but the three most important parts to DJing for me are the music that you play. That's the choice of music that you actually bring with you, the order that you play it in, so the set, how you plan the set and how that you evolve that set, and the mixing, the actual transitions between the tracks. So what you'll notice is the choice of music and the order you play it in are actually together enough to get you through a decent DJ set, actually to have a pretty entertaining couple of hours. Just concentrating on the mixing alone and not really having a flow in the music and so on isn't going to carry as much weight as having the right music. Even if you're mixing it badly, you're better off having the right music and putting it in the right order. It will actually be better than just playing the wrong music but mixing it perfectly. That's not going to work at all. So having said that, how do you basically figure out then what music to bring? I mean, nowadays, of course, you can have 100,000 tracks on your hard drive. Maybe you know all of these tracks, maybe you don't. That's another issue. Try to find out about the club. If you get a booking in a club, try to find out about the club beforehand. What kind of music is it? I mean, I'm not saying, is it going to be house music or is it going to be techno? It's obviously going to be a club that's probably focused on one style of music. It's probably, if it's, generally they do techno or generally they do drum and bass or whatever it is. But it's worth finding out. If it's a club in a city you don't know, or it's a place you've never heard of, find out what kind of vibe is going on that night beforehand. There's no point in showing up with the completely wrong type of music and having the people really not respond to it. It's pretty bad. So find out beforehand that type of night from that promoter or that group that you've been booked to play with. Just find out what kind of music it is, just in case, and try to organize your set around that. So it's quite important as a DJ to be able to improvise live. That's the whole point of being paid to come. Otherwise, they could just have a jukebox. You really want to be able to read the crowd. So by that, I mean, pick a couple of people in the crowd, try to play to them, try to concentrate on them, and try to, monitor if those dancers, see if they're getting tired or whatever, and then try to play to them. If you're just trying to play to a big mass of people, like 500 or 1,000 people, it can be a little bit more difficult. You're better off picking a couple of people in the crowd and just try to intentionally play for them. So playing live is really important, being able to improvise live. If you see that the people aren't responding to the music that you're playing, being able to change direction, it's super important. There's no point in plowing through a set that you've already pre-planned and the people aren't into it, and then you're just doing it anyway. It doesn't work. So you got to be able to change direction quite quickly and figure out, okay, this isn't working. I need to change the style a little bit harder, a little bit softer, or whatever it is within that genre. You need to be able to do that. But at the same time, it's worth having a preset set or a plan of the hour or 2 hours, whatever it is you get booked to play, beforehand. So you're going to work that out at home. Maybe you've played it a few times at parties and so on, and you kind of know, okay, I can fill out those 2 hours with this set. I already know it. Maybe you've saved it on a USB stick as a playlist. Maybe you've saved it in your Traktor or whatever as a playlist. You can have this as a basis. So at least you know if you're improvising then on the night and something goes wrong, you know you've got something to go back to, you've got a plan, at least you've got a backup. If you don't have any plan and you're just starting into a 2-hour set and the first 2 or 3 tracks you play, the people really don't like it, it can be quite daunting unless you are very good at improvising, what you get into later on as a DJ. But if you're just starting out, you might not be very good at improvising and be able to figure out, okay, how to deal with that. So it's worth having a plan just as a backup, so just in case it doesn't kind of go according to what you expected. Just to have something which is good that you can just fall back on, like a couple of playlists. It's worth having, but I wouldn't stick to it religiously. So once you do start, there's a kind of a trick about where the previous DJ has brought their set up to in terms of energy. Generally, the set is going to go up the whole way to the end. I mean, there are little dips in that, but overall it's going to go up. If you can, you want to try to continue that up trajectory with the first track that you play, maybe the first 2 tracks, because if the previous DJ has brought it up for 2 hours and you start off down here, the people on the dance floor, it's just taking them out of that vibe, that energy. They're going to walk off. They're just going to leave it. They're going to say, look up and see you and think, okay, well, this guy, this is not quite what we want. So if you really can, continue that trajectory of the previous DJ. If they've been nice to you, they might have brought it down a little bit before the end of the set, so that maybe the last track, so that you could have somewhere else to start off from, and you can do the same thing for the next guy as well. So not that you just bring it up as hard as you can, as far as you can, and then just leave it and walk off and let the next guy try to continue that. You can also try to bring it down a little bit at the end of the set to give them somewhere else to go to. So in that way, if you can, the first track or even 2 tracks, just build on the previous set, build it up, and then you can bring it down slowly to where you want to start your pre-planned set and then go from there. I know, and it's also quite a difficult thing to mix into someone else's music. Perhaps you might just let the last track that they play out, and you can have a couple of seconds of silence, and then fade up your first track in your set. You can do that. It depends. If the BPM is too different from where you want to start off, then you might have to do that. But if you can mix into the previous set, then it's pretty cool. It continues that energy, that vibe. You get a lot of credit for that if you can do that. But there's a good chance of if it's going to be a track that you may not have in your own repertoire, so you mightn't have mixed it before. You might not sort of understand you might know how it mixes into your own music. So it can be a little bit difficult. Okay, so general tips on show up obviously kind of early. If you get booked for a night, they might not tell you what time you're going to play at until you show up at the club. There won't be anybody at a nightclub until at least 9 p.m., 10 p.m., something like this. No point in really showing up much earlier than that. You might show up at 9 and then they tell you you're going to play at 8 o'clock the next morning. It depends on what type of music it is and what kind of venue it is. If you can find out beforehand, if you're in contact with the booking agent or the club owner, if you can find out generally what time you're going to go on at, you might save yourself hanging out at a club all night. You might be able to just stay in a hotel or stay home or stay in a hostel or whatever until 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, then get up really early and then go to the club, so you don't have to sit around all night, because you don't really want to be there that long as a DJ if you're getting paid to be there. You're there to do a job. You're not there to get drunk. You're not there to enjoy the party. You basically should be kind of avoiding dancing on the dance floor with the crowd before or after your set. You really just you want to create some kind of mystery between you and the people. So you don't really see a concert performer jumping off the stage and hanging out in the stadium in the crowd for half an hour. There's a distance. There's a kind of a mystery that you kind of want to create between you and the audience. So if you're hanging out in the party and then suddenly they see you up in the DJ booth, you haven't really created that mystery. You're kind of one of them, and there's no separation. So I know it's a bit tempting if you're showing up at a club and you've got like 2 or 3 or 4 hours to hang out until you're set. They're going to be nice to you. They're going to give you like drinks vouchers or a pass for the bar. The problem is just treat it like a job. I mean, you're there to work. They're paying you, and they expect you not to be so drunk or smashed that you can't actually perform properly. You're not going to get booked again. You know, it's like you got to be able to perform under these conditions, and it might be. It's an extreme condition. They are extreme conditions. Let's face it. I mean, you're in a club with thousands of people. It's unbearably loud. It's basically quite uncomfortable. I mean, for me anyway, it's uncomfortable if I'm stone cold sober. It's not somewhere I generally would want to go and hang out, being completely sober, to be honest. But as a DJ, that's the thing. You're there to do a job. I mean, the bouncers and the people behind the bar and so on, they're sober. I mean, there are some places where they're not even allowed to have like one drink all night. So they're there to do a job. They're getting paid to do a job. And if they mess up, if they're caught getting too stoned, they're going to be out of a job. And it's the same as a DJ. It's like, you're there to work, and this is your office, and you wouldn't show up to your office at 9 o'clock in the morning smashed, you know, or unslept or whatever. So if the more seriously you treat it, and the more like an actual job you treat it, the more energy you're going to have overall, because you might have another gig the next night. If you're getting completely drunk on a Friday night, you can't, and you're staying up all night, and you've got 2 hours sleep, and then you've got to travel to another gig the next night and do the same thing, and you do this every weekend, 2 or 3 times every weekend, and then you're doing it 12, 15 times a month. You can't continue that for any length of time. It's not a career. That's just partying. Like, and if you really want to be serious about DJing, you're going to treat it like a job. You're going to find out when you're going to be on. Show up a little bit before that, maybe an hour before that, hang out with a manager in their office, and go and play, and then leave, and that's it. And you'll get respect for doing that, because they'll see, well, okay, this guy or this girl is actually acting like a pro. You know, this is what the professionals will do. So it's kind of it becomes a workplace, and it becomes a very difficult job, because you're not there to get high and get drunk and enjoy the party. You're there to do something else. But your job is extremely important, and the more seriously you take it, the further you will get in that field. So having said that, like, enjoy it, like, have fun as well, because it is a performing arts concept. You're there as an artist, you're there to entertain, and there's a fine line. So, you know, have 1 or 2 drinks and that's it, and just be a professional about it, and don't be part of the party itself. Be part of the crew that are creating that party, and take it seriously.